All right. So today, our topic is grading contracts. That was our main object of discussion. I gave you guys both two articles. One was Jane Danielwich and Peter Elbow's A Unilateral Grading Contract to Improve Learning and Teaching. And the other one was by Emily Watson, called Achieving High Goals: The Impact of Contract Grading on High School Students' Academic Performance, Avoidance Orientation, and Social Comparison. So the Elbow article was published in 2009, and the Emily Watson article was published just last year, on December of last year. So this article's pretty cutting edge. It just came out in the last few months. So, well, Jen, I don't know, which one did you write about?
I did Emily Watson's, so the one that's recent.
What did you think? What did you discuss within it?
I really liked it. So basically, all she's saying, um, all she's saying like overall is like how contact grading can help with like academic performance, avoidant orientation, and like the social comparison. Obviously, that's in the title, but it just kind of doing this contact grading can implement a more positive learning environments for students, which is always something that uh, me as a teacher, a future teacher, I want to always have that in my classroom. Just she's the way that she's just saying throughout it, like adopting these can help with like student confidence. And when she talked about it, she said that it's they're at their own development than rather comparing themselves to like other students to their peers. It can help them to develop a growth mentally, and just like it makes them more motivated to do schoolwork because it's based on themselves rather than based on like a specific standard. Sorry, that word's really hard for me. But like an exact standard, it's not something that they have to like, all right, well, this is where everybody should be, but you're falling here. It's like, no, with your development, this is where you should be, and you're hitting your mark rather than trying to compare you to everybody else, you as an individual.
Right. So, like, let's say somebody tried to go for an A. Well, even if you was aiming for a B, right? One of the things she talks about is if you aim for the A, then more often than not, you'll at least get the B in this contract. But you raised some good points. Like, you're not comparing people to each other. It's more of a sort of individual thing with the contract grades, right? Um, like, so let's say, so a lot of the things that we were talking about last time with portfolios, it's kind of coming back here. Um, maybe, let's say I have a English 101 class here at Bluefield, and 20 people in there. Maybe five of them are pretty decent coming in. Five of them can barely write a sentence. The other 10 are maybe somewhere in the middle. If I did something like this contract grading, um, as you just said, it would kind of develop a system where everybody could develop at their own pace. So, under the terms of the contract, I could, if somebody who is a higher tier writer started out, they could meet that contract. But even if somebody who was a lower tier writer starting out, they could still at least maybe aim for that B, and then that kind of takes away, um, that helps them learn, and it also takes away the pressure of grades, right? Um, Sometimes the fear of getting negative feedback um, can be detrimental to the student. Like, maybe the art Watson seems to suggest that students tend to have some students at least tend to have an inferiority complex, right? Like, oh, I don't want to start this paper because I know my teacher's going to hammer me on it.
Yeah,
What's the
I remember in the essay it talking about the it was talking about how it can help with procrastination. Because honestly, I'm a big procrastinator. Today, I've been doing good with these pressies, but today I did mine at like 11, 12 o'clock is when I finally sat down and wrote it. I meant to do it last night and I kind of just pushed it off, but I got it done still.
yeah?
Sorry I'm late. Hello, Joelna.
Hi.
And we were just discussing. I just asked Joanna which article she wrote about. She wrote about the Emily Watson achieving high
Oh,
goals.
perfect. I did the other one.
Good.
Yes.
Actually, because we've been the only two the last couple of times, I looked at which one you wrote about and chose to do the opposite of which one you wrote about.
Bless you, Joelna. Bless you.
Because you already had, I was like, please say hers is already posted on the discussion, and it was. And I saw the author, and I was like, yes, I can do the other one.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad. I hope you were okay with the one you did. So
That the one I did is the one I wanted to do, so it worked out
perfect.
perfect in the end.
Yeah. I did the one the opposite, obviously. So with the two authors. And I thought they were I thought it was a pretty good article actually. Um it's impressive how much that doing that style of grading, the grading contract, how helpful it can be, like how encouraging it can be to some students, can make them more confident and all that. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
liked it.
We were just talking. Let's say that I have. This is something that Emily Watson brought up in her article. Let's say, just for the sake of scenario, I have a English 101 class. Five of them are pretty strong coming in. Maybe five of them are somewhere in the middle. Maybe
Yeah.
let's say the other 10 can barely write a sentence.
Yeah.
Um, the contract grading, Joanna and I were just talking. It kind of enables. It kind of enables you to improve without the fear of grade.
Right.
Um,
I agree.
like,
Yeah, I did Daniel Witch and is that how you say it, Daniel Witch and elbow?
yep.
Okay. Basically, this one actually is longer than most of my other ones because there were so many impressive quotes in it that I really liked. I thought they were really strong, the ones that I used. So, and am I doing that correctly? Am I adding the quotes the way I'm supposed to? Like, if I add a word in there that I need in there for it to go into my sentence, is it correct to have it in parentheses?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure that I was doing that
I
correctly, because I don't want to look.
think technically it's brackets if you add a word.
Brackets?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll
But
try to make sure I do that from now on then. But
I'll get the point.
okay. But I basically said that it establishes a deeper understanding of, this is my opinion. I'm not going to read the first part that summarizes the article, but what it can entail and elaborates on the resulting outcomes that can be achieved as a direct result. And being a future educator, I took Joelna's advice, basically, or I took this from Joelna, adding it from my perspective as a pre-service teacher, that it would be a good approach to take or something that maybe I should consider. And the outcomes are indicative of the process rather than being dependent solely on the results obtained. So that's the value that contract grading can have. It allows students flexibility and the comfort that and confidence and such to where they can maybe work harder or try things they wouldn't have tried otherwise, especially whenever it comes to grading papers. I said, like, having a class that, dedicated around, people writing papers, it's a good way to grade them. So basically people who get that higher score earn it because of the quality of their work, of their writing. So that's more or less what I said, but
Yeah, like arguably, right, it can help some of those lower tier students develop more.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, like
I,
go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'm listening.
Yeah, like one of the things that the Emily Watson article talks about is lots of times of students, some students kind of have an inferiority complex about their writing. Like I can't tell you how many times over the years I've had a student in like English 101 or even like World Lit tell me when they come in, I'm so terrible at English. I'm so terrible at it. I don't know how I'm going to do. I'm so terrible at writing. And lots of the times when I've heard that, the student ended up actually being pretty good. Um, it's just that they kind of had this inner voice in their head telling them they couldn't do it.
I think that's how
Right.
it
Like,
is with you. I think I came up to you in the beginning of the semester. I said writing and grammar and like English is not my strong suit. I'm a math and science person.
Yeah.
I want to be a math teacher.
What did I tell you when you said that, Joe?
And you said, I think you said something about like just try your best and try to try to hit your goals and it'll all work out. And I mean, not in a bad way, but I never made a bad grade on an essay. Like I think it like just made me go, okay, let me just try, and it worked out for me.
yeah, I think we're harder on ourselves. Like we're our own worst critics. And especially where a lot of times the feedback we get from instructors is usually not good. It's not like, oh, you did a great job. It's all the things you did wrong. So it kind of makes you feel inadequate and like you're not doing it correctly, like you just aren't really good at it, when in reality you may be a lot better than you realize.
Right.
So that's what I take from it, because for the longest time I didn't think I was the best either, but ultimately I found out over the years that I'm actually I'm a pretty strong writer. Sometimes I lose people, but otherwise I'm pretty strong. I could be worse. So, but for a long time, I didn't think I was that good. Like you, I was terrible. So, but I think it comes with like, growing and getting older. Just like, people, the older someone is, the less they usually care about what other people think. And that's liberating. So I'm
Yes.
getting that way about my writing. So,
Yeah, like what Joanna said, she told me, like I've heard that 100 times. Different students will come up to me, or if I'm teaching an online class, I'll read those first day discussion boards. They're like, "Oh God, I'm sweating this class. I can't write." I think it's always sad to see that, um, but I think sometimes too, um, these different schools try to break students up into categories, like, "Oh, you're the math and science kid," versus, "Oh, you're the English and history or an arts kid." Um, yeah, I think that's kind of a false dichotomy that a lot of schools put people in. They lump them into these categories. Um,
yeah, yeah, I was in that category of math and science for the most part as well. So,
then you hung up.
I always hated history, and now I love history. It's like one of my favorites. But I think, like I said, the older you get, the more you realize, you like things, or maybe you just didn't have the right teachers for the subject that you thought you were bad at or hated. So I've noticed that with some of the chemistry teachers I've had. Like, they were not the best. They weren't very good at explaining things or teaching you the way to do it. And some of the math classes I've had as well, same thing. I've had some really bad instructors, and then I've had really great ones. So the good ones make up for the bad ones for the most part, but you learn and gain perspective with age, for sure. So
Yeah, you were a math and science kid, then you took my class, and then it was all over. You became an English nerd after you took me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was in like my junior year of high school, I had an English teacher. I've never had an English teacher believe in me so much before. Like, they thought that I would just make the best writer. Like, they thought that's what I should do with my life, that, you know, I was a really strong writer. And I'd never had a teacher tell me that before. So, like I said, for all these years, I thought I was just terrible at it. But she was like, no, you're great. I enjoy reading your stuff. I get, like, you know, drawn into what you're saying. And I never had the right type of feedback before. Like I said, most of the time it's usually been negative. So I think that makes a lot of difference with kids. And like, you know, and I think that's changed a lot too. I've noticed, you know, especially being an education student now, like the methods that they teach you are appropriate with kids. You want to build them up. You don't want to, like, break them down with negative feedback. So, and over the years, I had a lot of that. So I had both. It was like 50-50. So.
Yeah, this idea of the grading contract, at least Watson says, right, helps students avoid that negative feedback.
Right.
It gives them a goal to work towards. As long as it gives them, some people are just really comfortable with a checklist. Right? You can successfully check all those items off the list. It takes pressure of perhaps makes them more willing to take risks. Yeah, I think it's an interesting idea. I've actually never implemented it in any of my classes before. I think it's a fascinating study. Um, Again, even here at Bluefield, we have standard, or we try to be as uniform as we can in those basic classes, and it'd be hard for me to try it and the other teachers not do it.
Yeah, it makes it hard for you, but I can see why it might be a good thing to try to do something like that, especially with those students that are lacking that confidence in their writing and such. So, I mean, I can see, especially after reading those and the conversation we had last week, I can see, and I love the perspective I'm gaining from taking these education courses as well, because, you know, and where I'm a millennial, right? Like, later in life, like, school wasn't like that for me. Educators weren't so positive and such. Like, you know, they didn't differentiate their, you know, their lessons and such. So they weren't made for every kid to have a chance at learning. And I love that the perspective I'm gaining at the age I'm at into how to do these things the right way and allow every child to succeed, you know? So it's really awesome.
Yeah, have you ever talked about grading and stuff in your education classes as much as this one?
Grading, like, not with writing. No,
Not
I
with
would say, honestly, like math, that's pretty simple, right? Like, or other things, or a test, there's keys with that. But as far as writing and grading that's concerned, or grading in general, I do believe you're the one that has taught me the most when it comes to that topic. So, which is insane because you're an English, you know, professor.
right.
But I think it's awesome, like the perspective that you bring and the things that you bring to the table, because so far, I haven't had that. I haven't had someone to tell me this is the right way, or this is the way that you should try doing when you're grading and things like that. Like, of course, they have us look at all these different articles and websites on different types of assessments and such. And maybe even how to gauge if your student's learning or getting what you're teaching. But they don't really tell you exactly the you know, how to grade. Like, I've not really had a class just on grading, honestly. Like, this is how you should grade this or that. And then, the different tiered learners, they say you got to account for that when you grade things. And so, I mean, but honestly, you being the English professor, being the one telling us about how to grade the most, I think that's kind of, I think it's awesome, but it's a little bit weird that you're the one that's teaching me this more than they are so far. So
I would agree with Amelia. I'm taking another class right now called Science and Social Studies for teaching science and social studies.
Mhm.
And that one I have to like make lessons plans and stuff, and like I'm doing stuff that, and it's like, how would you grade them? So like it's kind of teaching me how to grade, but like English is a completely different style of grading because it's not like you said math where it's cut and dry. You either got the question wrong or you got it right, and like you can get
right.
points, like where you have them show your work. You're like, you got a point here, you got a point here, but this is where you messed up, so you're missing the point here. But you did the right math, you just messed it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Read-
pretty easy to see too, like, especially if they're showing their work where they went wrong too. So
Mhm.
that's cut and dry, like you said. Or having a key to a specific worksheet, right? Like you got the answer right, you got it wrong, whatever. But I mean, English is a totally different ball game, right? Like,
Yeah, like
so
it's all about like, especially like last year, like obviously this class, it's not really cut and dry, but it's kind of cut and dry about what we're writing about. But like last year, for instance, like when we had us do your essays, we had like 5 different prompts that we could go from, and there was no like, all right, this is how the essay should look if you choose this prompt. It was just, no, here's the prompt, this is the style of writing you're using, write something. And as long as it met the prompt, it was right. Or in Amelia's case, she didn't you say that you didn't, like, you kind of took a prompt and like kind of turned it around to make it your own?
right, yeah, I made a totally new one more or less, but
Totally
it
like
kind of,
interpretation.
yeah, it came from something, but it was like my own thing for sure. Because I did it on like misogyny in ancient literature. So there wasn't an actual prompt for that, but there was a prompt that had to do with, feminism more or less in some of the stories. But yeah, so I mean, like as long as you have a topic and that you don't stray from that and you make sense with what you're doing, that's how, you're answering it. It could be like the opposite of what the prompt said, but as long as you are focused on that, you did the assignment correctly, right? It's different. Writing is totally different.
Yeah, I appreciate the feedback because I don't communicate a lot with the education folks, so I didn't know if I was repeating stuff that they were doing. Or,
No, you're doing a fantastic job. You're going above and beyond. I mean, it's impressive, honestly.
yeah, like I think I think they whenever you take a class called English grammar, you think you would just stick to the grammar, but I try to give you strategies for teaching grammar and writing and things like that. So try
Yeah, and
to
it's appreciated, Dr. Yeager. Like it's awesome. You're awesome. You're one of my favorite professors. Like you do a really good job, and I'm not just tooting your horn.
right.
I'm being completely honest. Like
I,
it's amazing like how well I mean you are a professor, so obviously you have an idea when it comes to education, but you are not the education professor. That's not, you're in English, but you could definitely, you could do both. So I mean you're really good at it.
I will say this. It sounds like I'm tooting your horn too, but I have obviously teammates that have had you as professors, and anytime I mention this class and they're like, "Oh, who do you have it with?" and I'm like, "Jaeger." They're like, "I love Jaeger." Like everybody that I know has nothing like bad to say about like how you do anything in your courses. Like I think you like are one of the better English professors at this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he cares and it shows. So, and I mean, he's fair, or at least he tries to be. In my opinion, he's fair. So, I mean, I agree. Like, I think he's great. Really one of the best I've ever had. So,
And I appreciate you all tooting my horn. No, but yeah,
Trying
I'm
to get
glad.
we're trying to get A's by the end of the year.
yeah, that's
I can
it.
see that.
Totally it. But, you don't get stuff like that all the time. You don't get the perspective of
Yeah.
people. And, it's really good that, especially from education majors, students in the education field, like, we have a different perspective than other people. We have an idea of what you're supposed to do when you teach. And honestly, you were meant to teach. You're fantastic. Like, I have nothing bad to say. So
Yeah, I could put that in the grading contract for A rank. Two.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, there we go. Now, I mean, the older I've gotten, the more I realize it's better to just, I've always been a people pleaser, but the older I've gotten, the more I realize it's better to just be completely honest. And some people appreciate it and some don't.
Mm.
And like, if a teacher wants feedback, I'm going to try and be genuine and honest about the feedback I'm giving them, because that's how they improve, right? So,
Oh yeah, the end of the year grading scores for your own professors, I'm brutally honest with those. And I feel bad,
yeah,
but like, I mean, like, this is like, we're in the nicest way possible. We're paying to be taught. Like, this isn't free public education anymore.
exactly. Yes,
Like,
ma'am.
I'm spending a lot of money to be going here, and I need to be taught. Did that make sense?
Yeah, it should be a
I'll be
quality
pretty.
education. I agree 100%, Joanna. Like, yeah, absolutely. We're paying a lot of money, and those teachers who just don't care, hate their jobs, don't care if you understand, aren't willing to be fair. I mean, I hate this, and I know in the field of education, you got to be professional at all times, and you have to be there. Like, teachers don't miss school very often, but people get sick. And I had an instructor last semester who just was not willing to work with me. I missed one class, and he gave me a 0. Like, and it messed with my grade. Luckily, I had A's and everything else. So, I mean, I still got an A, but like that one F really messed with me just because I had COVID and could not come to class. And I was like, I was told, I was warned. I think you probably know what professor I'm talking about, but I was warned, like, you can't miss this guy's class. He does not care. But, like, you can't help it if you're sick, man. You don't want to get kids sick.
That sounds a little unreasonable.
Oh, he was very unreasonable about it. There was nothing I could say or do. Nothing. Like, it was bad. And I just thought it wasn't fair at all. Like, you have to give some credit. And then, there's people who are consistently like asking for favors or late, to turn stuff in late. I asked you or told you ahead of time I wasn't going to be there because I was sick, and you still failed me in that for that day. Like, it was awful. I don't know. It's unreasonable. I agree. But I know when I have him, because I'll have him again, he's a major, education professor. Like, I'm just going to have to make sure I'm there, whether I'm sick or not. So, I don't know.
Yeah, so I will keep my unit on grading for future semesters then, because, yeah, like I said, I was just wondering if I was repeating stuff, so I'm glad I'm not.
No, you're awesome. You're doing things that I haven't seen as of yet. So, or if it is something I've heard of, you're elaborating on it to where we can understand how to use it ourselves. So,
Yeah, let me ask you guys this question. So, Amelia, what grade level are you planning to teach again? Remind me.
I honestly haven't decided.
You haven't decided?
No, like, I really love smaller children, but I also love the challenge that may come with teaching older kids. So, I mean, I think anywhere from kindergarten all the way up to high school would be, I may probably change over the years, like, I'm not really sure, because I've observed several different levels, and I can't really pick one that I love the most. So,
Yeah, I know our program here is a K-8 program, but I think if you still pass your praxis, you could still go and teach high school if you wanted to.
Yes, that's how it
right.
works here. Because at first coming in, I wanted to be a high school math teacher. My heart was set on it. I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. I know that's the field I want to work in, so that's how that works. But now that I'm here, I don't know if I want to do elementary school or high school math. I don't want to do middle school at all. It takes a
Middle school, they're so mean. Kids are so mean in middle school.
it takes a special person to be able to teach middle school, and I'm not that special person.
I understand where you're coming from.
And so, but one of those two is definitely where I want to teach. But I really like math, and I'm going to get a concentration in it. So I have to take almost every single math course at this school, so I could teach high school math.
Yeah.
Well, even in math, you'll still be teaching some writing. So I know they try to incorporate writing even in math rooms now. I don't know how much, but it's probably one of those things they just kind of brush under the rug. But I know it's a standard in a lot of, I think even in this state now, where math teachers got to do some writing. So let's take early elementary. Maybe not kindergarten, because kindergarten usually don't do, you do assessment, but not really at the same time. Let's say first, second, third, fourth grade. Grading, would a grading contract work in those grades, do you think?
Yeah, you could make it work. I do think. I think even in kindergarten, you could even do it. It just is all in how you do it.
Like you get a B, at least a B if you learn your alphabet and stuff like that, right?
I would agree 100%. Something that we're especially learning now with like just more research that's going out, with like cognitive learning and stuff like that, and development just overall, especially that young, so close to, you're still very young and your body's extremely developing. Once you get to high school, you're pretty much almost a full adult. You're almost all the way there. But just like people are different, people start talking at a different age. They develop at completely different ages. And so you can't expect every single person to be in the first grade to have all these abilities, because some of them still might not be verbal. Some of them still might not have the basic motor skills that they need. And so, and like all throughout elementary school and even middle school, partially, like it's every human is different and it's going to develop different. And so I think this is a really good idea for that, because it shouldn't be based on what everybody should be, because not everybody can meet that standard physically.
Yeah, you raise a good point. My wife, you guys know, teaches kindergarten, and she's got students in her room right now. Some of them are saying their alphabet. They're pretty advanced, and some of them are still struggling to even learn letters and stuff like that. So maybe if you had a grading contract, even for something that, even for grades that low, right? Maybe that would help each student grow more.
I agree. Yeah, because my son, he's in kindergarten right now, and he has a speech impediment, so it's making it more difficult for him to learn some of his sight words and letters. Like he knows them when he looks at them, but saying them are very, hard for him.
That's
So
tough.
I also had a speech impediment. I still have part of it. But so like my until fifth grade, every year the principal would tell my mom she needs to be held back. She needs to be held back. She needs to be held back. And I graduated with all honors in high school because
yeah,
my mom wouldn't let me get held back. She was like, "No, she knows what she knows, and she knows everything. It's just
yeah,
she's not developed. She can't develop the same way."
right. Yeah, Liam, and it's crazy because he is, you can tell he's very intelligent. Like he is above with his peers on some things. Like anything with math and science and the way he thinks, it's amazing. Like even adding and subtracting, I would say he's above kindergarten level. And, just comprehension in general, about things that, you wouldn't think that a kindergartner would understand, especially dealing with emotions and such. So you can see that he's intelligent. It's just getting it to reflect or getting it to where, they're able to just finding the perfect way to teach him has been difficult. So,
That's, I'm surprised you used the word sight word right there, because I know in the educate early childhood education now, they're de-emphasizing that. Um, they call it the science of reading, right? They're trying to make learning literacy into like a science.
Yeah, and well, I mean, studies have shown so far that a lot of the stuff that they've been, pounding in kids' heads is not effective. It doesn't really help them. They haven't found that perfect um, formula or whatever that does teaches them the golden ticket to teaching literacy and such. They haven't found that as of yet.
Yeah, so if you guys think it would work in a elementary level, I'm guessing you would also think it would work well in a middle school and high school level as well. Um,
For sure.
yeah, the article from Watson's about how she tried to implement it at this high school. The grades went up. Like more people who were making C's before started at least making B's. Some of them went from C's to A's. So you actually saw a pretty remarkable the statistics. She gave a lot of statistics in this article. Right? She gave statistical data to show that growth was happening um, in writing assessment. Right? The growth was actually happening based on this grading contract. Um, now we're I think we've all been very positive about this idea of grading contracts. Um, I think we should maybe also look at the downsides. Um, a lot of the arguments against them is the fact that we're going to lose standard if we go to something like this, right? We're talking about today an age of like grade inflation. Like, what do grades really mean anymore? They're so inflated, not only in K-12 but also college, right? So if we move to a system like that where just giving an effort will get you a B, really, um, are the grades going to become meaningless if we do something like that? Um, will that A mean as much compared to what it would have before? Um, how would you guys address that argument, you think?
For me personally, I see the downside, but I see it more as like I feel like it's easily argued against the or like a counter argument. Like you can easily go like say yes, I see this point. My my thing is like growing up, at least for me, my parents were always wanting me to have A's. That was like a big thing in my family is like I had to have good grades and it's still in me today. Like I'm always wanting a better grade than what I'm getting because of like what it's just what it's always been like implemented as is like A is like you want an A. The A is like
Yeah,
the best work. But like it doesn't really I feel like an A is different for everybody else, if that makes sense. Like
yeah, the best.
my A is like I have to have the exceptional and like da 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 like no like mess up anything like that. But I don't feel like we're all human. We're not perfect. And so I feel like it should be more catered to everybody, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the values that were instilled in you may be different from others. I get what you're saying.
And I feel like it wouldn't
Um,
really take away from the value. It would just give everybody the same. Well, my A is
oh,
this. The
yeah,
A,
everyone gets the opportunity, right?
yes, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the arguments that I saw. And then just those people that aren't putting forth enough effort are automatically getting this B and they maybe didn't earn it. That's another downside to it, to doing it this way. or becoming lazy, like oh, I'm going to get a B no matter what.
Right.
That's so that's another downside to, like, although it may make other people, like, motivate others, it may do the opposite for some. It just depends on the student. I'm
Yeah,
trying to think of another argument that was made
I could see
against it.
I could see students kind of hitting a wall with it. Like, this is the standard. Why should I try harder? Um, if this is all it takes, why should I try harder? Right? I can see where that would even create stagnation after a while.
Yeah, those students that are lazy or whatever, who don't have, if they don't have someone harping them,
And I could see there being lots. Maybe not. Depends how well you word your contract. But I could see there being lots of students being like, "Oh, I met the contract. This, and this." I can see there being lots of. If you implemented this, I could see there being lots of grade disputes. Um, some of I'm looking at the Watson article pay on, it's like 4 or 5 pages in figure one. She actually shows you an example of a grading contract, and the contract for an A and a contract for a B. Um, some of these things that are on this contract, like, let's say this is a high school research paper, like she's talking about. Just because you have these things doesn't mean it's really a good paper either. Like, it says the contract for an A: format the paper and works cited page in MLA with no errors. Write a minimum of 100 paraphrase notes and use those only to write your paper. Find 8 to 10 sources from the library database. Write a well-crafted thesis statement and corresponding topic sentences. Analysis is consistently present, compelling, and well explained within each paragraph. Discuss cause and effect. Cite at least 2 different sources in each body paragraph without repeating citations, showing seamless and balanced use of sources. Meet minimum word count of 2,100 without exceeding 2,400 words. Submit a printed essay and submit to Turnitin on time and receive a clean report. Writing must be edited and pruned for sophisticated use of grammar, mechanics, diction, and sentence structure. So if you checked all those boxes, you get an A. Some of those, I don't really like some of those.
Yeah, because your writing, like you said, could just be crap. You met all the criteria, but your writing makes no sense.
Right? There's nothing in here about the logic of the person's argument. Like, maybe the person's writing something completely illogical. Nothing in there.
Right.
Nothing in here about that. Um, like, word counts are very arbitrary. Like, some people might, like, I usually whenever I assign a prompt, I usually give a sort of a ballpark estimate, like 7 pages, 8 pages, 3 to 4 pages.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
because sometimes if you continue to put stuff, it doesn't make sense. You're just repeating yourself.
uh,
Like, so it's not necessarily relevant.
you'll put those clutter words in to make the paper seem
Right.
larger.
That's how I feel. That's one thing I also like about you is as you as a professor is because I remember like last year was like 3 to 5 pages. Just if you can get it done in 3 pages, get your point across in a great essay in 3 pages, then get it done in 3 pages. But
Yes.
if you need the extra room to really bring your point home, then use the 5 pages. It was just more of like a
It
don't
made sense,
it,
right?
it made me not feel like I have to work so hard to make sure I reach this word count, but more that my idea comes across.
Yes.
Right?
And that's the whole point, right?
Yeah, like if she could write a great essay in 3 pages, right? Why not just do it in 3 pages? You get your point across that much sooner. So, like, putting an arbitrary word count on a grading contract isn't going to make the paper better.
Exactly. I agree.
Um, the contract for a B, it says on this one, meet minimum word count of 2,100 without exceeding 2,400 words,
Wow.
minus 1% per 1% over or under. So I guess they
I
take,
don't see the relevance in that. It doesn't really make sense.
like if you had 1,800 words, we're going to take off a certain percentage based on how many percent you were under 2,100. Like that's silly.
It is silly. I was thinking the exact thing. That is just ridiculous.
And why do you have to cite at least two different sources in each body paragraph? Like, sometimes you might do that, sometimes you might not. Um, Depends on the
Yeah.
purpose of the body paragraph, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, you're pretty much saying here, plug in sources whether you need to or not. Yeah, so if I did do a grading contract, I don't think I would do it like Emily Watson's doing it here. I think she wrote a great article, but I don't agree with what's on her grading contract. Let me ask you guys this: this when I was reading through this article just came out December of last year. Um, but she cites a source in her paper. I'll mark it down. It's in the first page or two. Uh, yeah, literally on the second. It's on the second page. She cites an article from Inuo in 2019. Inuo's article was AB Inuo, labor-based grading contracts, building equity and inclusion in the compassionate writing classroom. But this is a big controversy right now, and that's talking about. I'm kind of changing gears from grading contracts to this a little bit, but one of the things that's said in that article is the value of an F. So they actually, I think Inuo actually says in that article that one of the worst detriments to education is giving somebody a 0 or not completing an assignment or maybe plagiarizing an assignment or whatever. And she says giving somebody a 0 produces such a catastrophic effect on your grade, kind of like what you were talking about earlier, Amelia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, gave this idea like it doesn't matter what the assignment is, you should at least give the student a 50. A 50 is still an F. But even if for work it's not completed, you at least give a 50. The idea is if a person misses one thing or something, it's not going to completely sabotage them like getting a 0 would.
Right. Yeah. That definitely sabotage. I felt sabotage. Exactly what you said.
Do you guys agree with that? Do you feel like you should get a 0 if you don't do work, or do you like that idea of the 50?
Yeah, I agree. You don't want to kill their sabotage, like you said, self sabotage, kill their grade like that. I mean, of course, if they absolutely earned it, you know, but I mean, it would really take a lot. Like, you'd really have to be being offensive, not doing things the way you're supposed to, something. But yeah, I agree. You shouldn't do that to people because it really messes up their grade.
I would agree with that too. In a sense, I think that like a zero is earned. Like if like you don't submit anything, then obviously that's a zero. Like there's nothing to grade. But
Mhm.
even if like kind of like Amelia said, like but in a sense, even if it's like not the greatest paper, I feel like there's still some things that could earn points. Maybe they missed the prompt of how you wanted to respond to it, but their ideas for what they're writing about aren't horrible. Then I believe that that should, in some degree, earn some points, if that makes sense. Like say you
Right.
miss you
Yeah.
almost like a I mean I'm a softball player and like say you hit a foul ball. You didn't hit the ball in play. You didn't do what you're supposed to do. But you still make contact. You still did something. You know what I mean? Like it's a you should still kind of get some credit for that if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Yeah, you're not going to get an out for hitting a foul ball, at least.
Yeah, it's not going down as a zero. It's not going in for the fair play, but you can get you know, you're like, okay, you're on it. You're what you're saying is making sense to what you're answering, but you're not answering exactly what you're supposed to be answering.
What about if a student does no work at all, Joanna? Let's say they didn't do an assignment, but they get a 50. Do you agree with that?
See, I don't agree with that because that's a backwards K right there. You went down there.
Right.
You at least got to make an attempt.
Make an effort.
If I feel like you should never get a zero if you can honestly tell a student tried. And that's just my opinion because sometimes I've had like I've had classes where like I've tried really really hard and I might have not got it exactly, but like if I was to receive like you know what I mean, like I feel like a zero is just like to me a zero means like you didn't do anything. And
Right.
I feel like it should never be used as a well, you got it wrong, so you got a zero.
I agree with you 100%.
Because I feel like as long as you try, you should get something. But if you don't do anything, it's definitely a zero.
Yeah, a couple of years ago when I worked at community college before I came here, um, I had a dean who really liked that idea. Even if you get to do nothing, you can at least get a 50. That way, you won't be sabotaged if you forget to do at least one or two things or something. Um, the faculty were ticked over it. Like, no, even like what Joanna was just saying. Let's say somebody got a D. Well, maybe somebody, maybe it's a maybe it's a 3 to 4 page essay. Maybe somebody wrote a page and a half and got a D. Right. Well, person who wrote a page and a half and got a D, that's only 15 points more than what somebody who did absolutely nothing did. So, how is that fair? Um, so I see the argument against that idea there for sure. It's a pretty widespread idea. I think a lot of K-12 schools are moving to that. Um, no work at all at least gets a 50. So
I
some
think I have had one professor that did that because honestly, just like sometimes I'm pretty sure I've even done it in this class. I just didn't see an assignment and so I missed it and I got a zero. But I think I've had a professor before like give me a 50 on something I never did. And honestly, I looked at it and instead of trying to email them being like, hey, I'm so sorry. I didn't see that assignment, didn't realize it. Is there any way that I could redo it? Because I don't want that zero on my grade. I see the 50 and I'm like, well, that's not going to bring it down as much as the zero will. So I'll be fine, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think I remember having a professor here that did that to me.
yeah, I remember whenever he was dean, we all had to do that policy, and like there was people skipping like entire papers, but because they got at least a 50.
That is so not fair. I've never had anyone do that for me ever. It
Yeah,
just takes away from the people that work really hard, you know.
like let's say the research paper is worth 30%.
Like I've gotten lower grades than I felt like I deserved at points, you know. But just giving someone a 50 for not doing it at all, nah, that's not fair.
I didn't see it as fair, but I wasn't about to ask questions and why it was a 50 and not a 0 in that grade book.
Oh
Yeah,
no, yeah, no, I totally get it. I do the same thing you did. I agree with you there. Like, and it's not like it happens every day, right? You know, that's different. But like somebody who, like, that's the policy. What? Just doesn't seem
it's gaining
fair.
it's gaining steam. A lot of schools are moving to that now.
That's like the whole everybody gets a trophy thing. Like,
Right?
I mean, yes, there's some value in some of it, like maybe when they're younger, but the older you get, people work hard, you know? Like, it's not fair. It's not the same. And
As
it
somebody in
doesn't teach or instill values in them, right? Life's
in
not like that.
in like obviously athlete, um, we that argument is something that's like really big to me. Like I understand like T-ball giving everybody a trophy because they're just out there
I
having
agree.
half of them are
Yeah.
playing with the dirt anyways. That's just for fun. But like especially like when you get older and stuff, like I mean I've been to tournaments where everybody gets a t-shirt, but that's completely different. That's like a t-shirt, but like your rings and your trophies, like that you
Right.
poured uh, literal blood out onto that field to try to do, and then everybody gets one, that would make me very upset.
Yeah, it's not fair. That's not how life works.
When receiving a trophy like that, I would feel pitied. I'd be like, no, I don't want this trophy. I didn't earn it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, like if a research paper is worth 30% and the person gets a 50 for not even doing anything, they just get a free 15% handed to them. Not very fair, right? So, yeah, all these things you guys will encounter in your careers, I'm sure, at some point or other.
I mean, you're just teaching kids something that's not real or true, you know? And I just don't see how that's a valuable thing. Like, what kind of people, what kind of generation will that turn into, you know? It can't be good.
I feel like the way I see it too is like obviously like real life, like you said, like that's not how real life is. And if you think about it, like if these people are getting zeros for not doing any work, imagine when you get a job and like you don't go into work that day and they're like, well, where's my 50% of my pay?
Right. Like, you're teaching them something that, I mean, it doesn't
That
work.
you yeah, it doesn't it's yeah, you don't that's not how the real life works unless then all of a sudden they're changing jobs to that way, which sign me up. I'll go to a job. I'll not show up for
Yeah.
less than 50% of my pay.
You're setting people up for failure, is what you're doing. That's the way I see it. I mean, I just don't see any value in that. I don't see how it's, you know, realistic, pragmatic. Nothing about it is good. And it cannot, like, give you good results whatsoever. It's going to, like, that's Armageddon style. Like, that's what that generation's going to turn into. I don't know how else to explain it. It just seems bad.
Yeah, I've heard some horror stories from my wife about like millennials raising their like the kids in school now are the kids of millennials, and a lot of millennials. Amelia and I are both millennials, right? A lot of millennials they think we're spoiled now that millennials are raising kids. They're starting to see these types of like attitude problems coming up in the kids of millennials. Um, of course,
Not
generalizing
with
all millennials,
mine. My kids aren't perfect by any means, but no, like, I'm trying to at least teach them reality and what
right?
reality is like, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
lots of times millennials get lumped into a stereotype. Not all of us are like that.
right. exactly.
So yeah, this as far as whether or not you would implement this, I guess in a K-12, it would depend on if your principal was comfortable with it. Um, Maybe your colleagues. I would like to try it sometime in my English comp class. Um, yeah, I might. I don't teach too much English comp now. I'm mostly lit and upper level stuff. But next time I teach it comp, I might try this just to see how it works. I see both sides of the argument, though. I think the discussion boards are going to be interesting because I think a lot of I've been getting emails from students who aren't in the Zooms, but a lot of them didn't really like these articles. So the discussion boards should be interesting to read for this one.
Honestly, a lot of the articles, yeah, some of them are boring, but honestly, I do not think they're that terrible. There's value to reading them. Like, I've read so much worse. Okay, like most of the stuff that you have us read isn't bad.
Yeah, it's articles about teaching, so there's only so much excitement one can get out of that.
Right, and I mean, there's relevance to what we're reading. Like we can learn. There's something gained from it. So, and for the most part, they're not horrible. Like, no, they're not always like, the most interesting, but some of them aren't so bad. And if you really enjoy what you're learning, then, you may even enjoy some of the boring stuff. At least
Yeah,
that's what I've gotten from it. So,
yeah. This is the type of thing that this part of the class is the type of thing that will spark a research paper idea. Because, like, let's say you're interested in contract grades or just grading in general, or grading with portfolios, or our future units, right? Whichever one of these topics you find most intriguing, that will be what you will do your research paper on. So, yeah, looking ahead, which just think about it, like whatever you find interesting, maybe hone in on it. Look at the works cited pages of the articles that I've given you that you've read. You can find other articles in there, and then you can look those articles up. That's how research is done. So, but this concludes our grading unit. And our next unit, starting next week, it's a week long. It's a week long unit. But we're going to talk about African American Vernacular English (AAVE), and especially how do you teach um, those communities. Like there's always the problem of standard English, and they're speaking this dialect AAVE, and so like what are good ways to approach that? How do you?
and you don't want to offend, right? As well.
So yeah, we're going to spend 2 days on that, and then we're going to spend a day on Appalachian English following that. So 3 classes on teaching marginalized groups. And a lot of the lessons you gain from those groups, like if you get a different type of group, you can apply to those same teaching strategies to those too. Um, but it's a fascinating subject. How do you teach grammar to students and grammar and writing to students with different um, dialects? So yeah, one of the things I'll give you some articles. I think the articles I posted for next time aren't that long. I'm going to post a video too. That's like a 20-minute long video that goes into vivid detail about some of the major differences. It's more of a linguistics video. I'm going to give you a linguistics video on the major differences between AAVE and the standard English. So that'll kind of educate. I would say watch that video first and then read the articles. You'll get more out of the articles after you watch the video. So watch that video first.
And that's for Tuesday of next week.
Yeah, I'm not giving you. When I wrote the syllabus at the beginning of the year, I didn't think we had a spring break, so I just slashed the reading that I had planned for Thursday. I just it was kind of an expendable reading anyway. So, but yeah, next Tuesday will be our next reading. On
Okay,
AA.
and there's a Pressy, I'm sure, as well, due with that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll try to get caught up on the pressies I owe you guys this weekend. And also, still, I need to finish rating the essay part of your tests. So those are both projects for the weekend. So you guys feeling good?
Yep.
All right. So, well,
Yes.
you all have a restful spring break. I think